Hello, Saturday. This is a video about jobs. First reference article here is from the BBC, and it starts 7 months on from the ousting of President Hosni Mubarak in Egypt. There are protests pretty much every day. Many of the demonstrations are political, but some are prompted by people's living standards. Egyptians are demanding higher wages, better working conditions, and more jobs. Life is tough, says Yasmin El-Reshdi, an Egyptian author. On an economic level, there has been no change. If anything, it's become harder. Food prices have been rising at a rapid rate, putting pressure on the poorest. Bleak jobs outlook. The latest official data show the price of rice and sugar rose more than 10% in 1 month from June to July this year. The price of tomatoes, essential to many Egyptian dishes, has almost doubled in a year. 2/3 of Egyptians are under 30 years old. It's thought about 1/3 of them are unemployed, including many university graduates. I'll push on. A theme should arise. Carla Rivera in the LA Times. The high school graduating class of 2011 lost ground on every measure of the SAT exam, with reading scores nationally the lowest on record, prompting concern about whether students are being adequately prepared for college, officials said on Wednesday. Third link is finally the most telling. Student loan debt has just crossed above credit card debt in America for the first time ever. Almost got credit card debt to $1 trillion, but it never quite got there, and it's been coming down ever since. But student loan debt has been on the up and up, and as they say, and as you can see, it's crossed over above credit card debt. Fourth link, New York Times. With only 960 residents and a handful of roads, this tiny hilltop village in the arid, sulphurous hills of southern Sicily does not appear to have major traffic problems, but that does not prevent it from having 1 full-time traffic officer and 8 auxiliaries. The auxiliaries, who earn a respectable €800 a month, or $1,100, to work a 20-hour week, are among about 60 Comitini residents employed by the town, the product of an entrenched jobs for vote system pervasive in Italian politics at all levels. Jobs like these have kept this city alive, said Caterina Valenti, 41, an auxiliary in a neat blue uniform, as she sat recently with 2 colleagues, all on duty, drinking coffee in the town's bar on a hot afternoon. You see, we are all at the bar. We support the economy this way. Right, now we get to where I'm going, I suppose. Douglas Rushkoff, I don't know if you've heard of him. Anyway, wrote an article for CNN, and I've pulled some stuff from it. And so the president goes on television telling us that the big issue of our time is jobs, 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 as if the reason to build high-speed rails and fix bridges is to put people back to work. But it seems to me there's something backwards in that logic. I find myself wondering if we may be accepting a premise that deserves to be questioned. I'm afraid to ask this, but since when is unemployment really a problem? I understand we all want paychecks, or at least money. We want food, shelter, clothing, and all the things that money buys us, but do we really want jobs. We're living in an economy where productivity is no longer the goal, employment is. That's because, on a very fundamental level, we have pretty much everything we need. America is productive enough that it could probably shelter, feed, educate, and even provide healthcare for its entire population, with just a fraction of us actually working. Later in the article, instead, we are attempting to use the logic of a scarce marketplace to negotiate things that are actually in abundance. What we lack is not employment, but a way of fairly distributing the bounty we have generated through our technologies, and a way of creating meaning in a world that has already produced far too much stuff. 12th of September, Mystic Over the Peak tweeted, "Society faces the dilemma that it knows only how to distribute wealth via work, but now less and less work is required to produce wealth." Incredibly wise, isn't it? Mystic, you could even say. Mystical. Marvellous. So what's he on about? Society faces the dilemma that it knows only how to distribute wealth via work. And that's about it, isn't it? We go to school, we're taught how to, the idea is we're taught how to produce things in a job. And that's the way we get our money, so we can buy food and clothing and shelter, etc. But now, because, as Rushkoff says, of technology and what not, less and less work is required to produce wealth. Let's go back to Rushkoff. And I've pulled out a triple paragraph section. Jobs, as such, are a relatively new concept. People may have always worked, but until the advent of the corporation in the early Renaissance, most people just worked for themselves. They made shoes, plucked chickens, or created value in some way for other people, who then traded or paid for those goods and services. By the late Middle Ages, most of Europe was thriving under this arrangement. Now, it must be said, if we went back to that arrangement, we would not have the proliferation of stuff that we do have now. The way it's actually worked out, it's that's created the production, the efficiency, the productivity that has made so much stuff. When we go back to this sort of, that's what we'll be going over the peak, down back to this, we will have increasingly less and less stuff. But middle paragraph, the only ones losing wealth were the aristocracy, who depended on their titles to extract money from those who worked, and so they invented the chartered monopoly. By law, small businesses in most major industries were shut down and people had to work for officially sanctioned corporations instead. It's all true. From then on, for most of us, working came to mean getting a job. The industrial age was largely about making those jobs as menial and unskilled as possible. Technologies such as the assembly line were less important for making production faster than for making it cheaper, and labourers more replaceable. Now we're in the digital age, we're using technology the same way to increase efficiency, lay off more people, and increase corporate profits. We've run ahead of ourselves, haven't we, with the old idea of the corporations and having a job. But now we've got so much technology and people are expensive because they want to buy the stuff. The people can't be afforded, and so the people are being laid off. The technology is being used to keep the productivity rising and rising. and we know that the gains of that productivity are going to the owners of the capital that instigated that productivity, not to the labour. So the labour is being put aside, more stuff is being made, but we're stuck with the system that the only way people can get hold of wealth is by working for it. But working is being phased out basically by efficiency, productivity and technology. And of course, if I'm speaking for the Western world, it's being phased out by the cheap working people in the Eastern world. We are absolutely going to have to find ourselves a new system. At least we know now that communism doesn't work. So that's at least a starting point. But we do need a new system, because capitalism, in the way it's... Capitalism, in the way it's working now, isn't working either. This idea of having a job and that being the way to distribute wealth, it's not working. And it's increasingly not working. I'm sure for many reasons we will be going back to that opening paragraph where we will be much more local and working for ourselves and for local others. But will we be able to get there gracefully or not? Can we plan our way down the back of the peak, or do we have to just tumble and fall down the back? Any ideas how we can do it gracefully? Leave it with you. See you on Monday. Bye.